Welcome everyone to Monday Match Analysis. I'm Gill Gross. Today's episode is a preview of the 2023 Nitto ATP Finals. We're getting there, folks. It's not the end of the season. It's not the last week. We have the next gen finals in Jeddah to look forward to in the week to follow. But we are wrapping things up, and it is time for the year-end championships. I am going to give kind of an unconventional preview, just run down all the players in the field, how I'm feeling about their chances. I'll project their records in the group stage. That will leave us with semifinalists, and it'll be like a regular final weekend prediction, just without the quarter-by-quarter stuff, because obviously there's no draw, but there is two groups. And I also have a special graphic that I will tease right now, a special graphic that we can look forward to. I'm not going to break down every matchup like I could do that. I'm not going to. If you're disappointed to hear that I'm not going to break down every single matchup, I will tell you this. I am going to be doing pretty regular content throughout this event. Luckily, my schedule has freed up enough where I can do that. So I'm going to be talking about a lot of these matches, and I hope that is some consolation for any of you who would like me to go through each and every head-to-head here, which I'm not going to do. What I'm also not going to do is skip the ATP events that went final this week. I'm not going to do any match analysis, but I will kind of talk about what I saw and the results that will wrap up kind of the regular programming for this year's ATP season. Metz and Sofia. Let's start with Ugo Humbert, winning in his home city of Metz. I've said for a long time, he's way too talented to be outside the top 30. His record against top players has been Exhibit A when it comes to objective evidence that he's way too talented to be outside the top 30. And it's been bad at certain points the last 2 years. You know, there have been some injury things. Seems like COVID got him pretty good. But I think there were also some, just tennis issues where wasn't making returns in play, wasn't really playing high percentage tennis at all, and was kind of hoping for the best. And he seemingly turned that around to the point where it's not just flashes right now. There's consistency on a week-to-week basis to the likes of which we have never seen from Ugo Humbert. I'm talking, you look at the last 5 events he's played, quarterfinals or better in 4 of them. And the one outlier there was a third set tiebreak loss to Zverev in Paris. So he has been bringing it every single week. And specifically when it comes to Metz, there was a lot of pressure here. He grew up in Metz. He's born in Metz. You could see that in the first round when he played Dominic Thiem. Oh, by the way, he had never played well here. 2018, Ugo Humbert picked up his first career win in Metz. Over who? Our guy, Bernard Tomic. That was his first ATP win. Since then, 0 wins in Metz. 1-4 record, kept losing 3 setters. So, that begins to weigh on you. I think he was feeling it. Got through Thiem in 3 sets, and from there it was smooth sailing, and he kind of rolled everybody. Harold Mayo, first ATP quarterfinal for him. That was his quarterfinal win. Fanini in the semis. Fabio was not having it in the semifinal. It was one of those performances where it's like, all right, he's not particularly interested here. Humbert beat him 6-love, 6-2. And then 6-3, 6-3 over Shevchenko in the final. Shout out Alexander Shevchenko. I think I might have said last week, I don't know when it was or what even content I was doing, but he's a player to watch for me next year. Shevchenko, I like his game a lot. First ATP final for him, so congratulations for that. Again, with Humbert, I think we're seeing more focus over the course of his matches, better movement, safer targets. He's still taking the ball early. He's still finding really sharp cross-court angles and marrying that with a really good ability to redirect. And that's why, he's He's very good at using the width of the court and creating baseline damage. But, he needs to pick his spots, and also he needed to make returns in play because, again, for a while there, his return of serve was like a non-starter. He just wasn't making any returns. I think Jeremy Chardy is just, he's gotten him to kind of move back a little bit to give himself a little bit of extra time, and they figured out a way to maybe even adjust the mentality on the return of serve. And again, just go for safer targets and find a way to make them, and maybe block occasionally as well. So good to see Humbert play well. There's some caution, of course. He's an aggressive, relatively low margin player making a post-US Open run. We have seen that be fool's gold before. The way I would kind of counter that is, look, the signs have been there all year. When Humbert was winning clay challengers, that's when I knew, because his game is really poorly suited for clay. And, when he's out there winning clay challengers, and I know it's a challenger, it doesn't matter. That was the first time that I knew that Humbert was turning the corner and he was on his way up. Big day for French tennis. Mannarino wins Sofia. 3rd title of the year, 5th of his career. I mean, that kind of tells you all you need to know. I've talked about him on Monday Match Analysis a couple times already. I'm not going to do the whole Mannarino thing. But again, he's won more titles this year, the year he turned 35 years old, than he had in all the previous years of his career combined. So it just had me thinking, we've focused so much on the big three and their almost miraculous takedown of Father Time in a lot of ways for as long as you can possibly hold off Father Time. All of them have, and they've made great adaptations to have really successful careers into their 30s. Yeah, we focused a lot on that. That's been covered a lot. What about everybody else? Now, right now, in particular, you look at the top 10, you look at the top 20, it's actually really, really young. There's a lot of youth in there. But let's not forget, like 3-4 years ago, there were a lot of Mannarino situations popping up. Before this youth movement, we were seeing this athletes are aging better thing through the ranks, right? Fabio Fognini, John Isner, David Ferrer, Kevin Anderson. These are all guys who reach new heights north of 30 years old. Now, granted, most of them were early 30s, and we would, hear things and say things like 32 is the new 27 or something like that. So maybe the catchphrase for Mannarino should be 35 is the new 30. Turin. General points here before I get into my thoughts and my predictions. This is the fastest court on tour. At least it was last year. And it was extreme to the point where nobody was breaking serve, and there were a ton of tie breaks. And when that happens, you have two things at play. The year-end championships, it's already going to be tough to predict because the players are really close together in level. I don't think I need to explain that part of it. When you combine that, right, you have a bunch of guys who are just, by nature of this event, they're all really good and they can all beat each other, right? Then you combine the fact that no one's breaking serve and it's like there's a third set tiebreak every other match. Now it becomes very 50-50 like. I think this is the hardest week to predict of the year. I don't know how you measure something like that, but that's how I feel. However, you got to kind of take what it is and think, okay, well, what can we discern about what is important in Turin, given the conditions, given what I just said? Well, one of the things I'll be thinking about is, who do I trust in clutch situations? If we're going to see a lot of close matches if the difference between winning and losing is going to be, one player saves both break points and the other doesn't, and it's each return, each player has one return game where they have a chance, and it's who's going to convert and who's not. Like if that's the kind of sets that we're going to be seeing, who do I trust? Who's clutch? That's it. I mean, sometimes these things are, again, it's not easy to figure that kind of thing out, but I'll be thinking about that. Obviously, in terms of the speed of the court, there are other factors, that come into play. I think it's a real detriment if you don't serve well. This field, the serving is quality. I'll say that. I mean, this is a top 8 where you have vast majority high-level serving, high-level servers. I would also consider not just who do I think plays well in tie breaks, who do I think does well in high leverage situations, but also who's playing with less pressure, because that also helps when things get tight. And then the other thing I'll say is every year we learn that tennis math doesn't add up. And I think that's a good thing to keep in mind before we get into this. There's going to be rock, paper, scissors situations. There are. There's going to be weird triangles where it's like, again, paper beats rock and rock beats scissors and scissor beats paper. And it's like, how does that make any sense? 'Cause tennis. That's just how this works. Always be mindful that that's going to happen in this competition. It can't really happen in regular tournaments because when you lose, you're out. But in this event, that's not the case. On that note, created a table that you may find helpful. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, you will not find this table as useful. But essentially, this can act, and you can pause it and you can screenshot it. This can be your cheat sheet for ATP Finals head-to-heads. I liked putting this together. I like looking at this. It's interesting to me. Do I think it's a great way to figure out what's going to happen in the event? No. But I will give you 3 takeaways from this table. First of all, Rune. Rune is 6-2 against his group. That's Djokovic, Sinner, Tsitsipas. He is 10-7 against the Turin field. I cannot tell you how impressive it is that we have a 20-year-old in this field that has a winning record. First of all, he has a win against everybody. So the other 7 players, all 7 of them, he's beaten at least once. And again, he just hasn't been on tour very long. So he hasn't had a lot of opportunities to even play these guys. He's played Djokovic 4 times. He hasn't played anyone else more than 3 times. And Rune still has wins over everybody and has a winning record overall. That's amazing. So looking at this table, that's probably the biggest takeaway that I actually find meaningful here, is just looking at that. There are other things that I find misleading about this table. There are numbers that I don't trust. For example, Sinner, 2-10 against his group. His group is Djokovic, Tsitsipas, Rune, so he's also in the green group. I'll show you the groups, soon. He is 2-10 against his group. He is 13-25 overall. Now, that's not surprising. The top 10 players that he's had success against are Alcaraz and Rublev, and everyone else he struggled against. In fact, everybody else, last 2 or 3 years that Sinner's been on tour until this year, he's gotten knocked around by these guys. He's gotten beat up by these guys. So his numbers aren't pretty, but he's just a vastly different player right now. Vastly different. So I don't know how much I care about Sinner's record because of how different he is right now compared to when the vast majority of his 13-25 record against the field. I mean, how many of those matches were before this season? I feel like a lot of them, and I feel like his record this season would be a lot better. I didn't take a look, but certainly, you look at the 2 wins against Medvedev, for example, 2-6 against Medvedev, and the 2 wins have come in the last 2 months. And the last thing I'll say about this table is Djokovic. I mean, what a great, and this is not surprising, obviously, but what a great look at his dominance and the impressiveness of his resume. His win percentage against the Turin field, and also keep in mind, this is a really large sample size because he's been around for all of these guys' entire careers. His win rate is 72% against this field, 41-16. I want to put that number in perspective. Some of you may be less familiar with win rates. How good is 72%? 72% is better than Rune, Zverev, and Tsitsipas did against all competition in 2023. That is a better win rate than they had for the season, being seeded players week in and week out. So obviously playing lower ranked players in the first couple rounds, and yet still Djokovic against this field has 72% win rate. That's amazing. All right. I'm ready to reveal my group predictions, and then I'm just going to talk through each player. That's how I'm going to do this, okay? So I'm just going to hit you with it. 3, 2, 1. Here's the green group. I have 3 players at 2-1. I have 1 player at 0-3. So Djokovic, I have him winning the group at 2-1. Sinner, second place in the group at 2-1. Rune, third place at 2-1. And Tsitsipas in fourth at 0-3. So I'll run through the players. I'm not going to give you essays on this. For Djokovic, I think he'll play a lot better than he did in Paris for 2 reasons. One, he got some matches, and I just think that he is going to be better for it. My feeling all along with Djokovic for this post-US Open stretch, I thought things would be a little bit rough in Paris. I think by the time the ATP Finals rolled around, I thought he'd be a lot closer to 100%. So I'm going to stick with that feeling. But also the faster conditions are a bonus in my opinion. They put a premium on the serve return dynamic. They make his backhand more of a weapon. They emphasize the importance of redirections, pace absorption, precision, all of these things that Djokovic excel in. So I look at, Novak winning Paris, and I think whatever we saw there, up it by 20%. And that's what I think we'll see at the ATP Finals. That said, I'm pretty high on Sinner and Rune here. So I figure one of them can beat him. I think Rune or Sinner will be able to pull off an upset, and that's why I have Novak at 2-1. Let me start with Sinner, because ultimately I have him getting through the group. The concern with Jannik is there's a lot of pressure all of a sudden. He's in Italy. He's been tearing it up. He's supposed to contend. This is his first real ATP Finals in earnest. I know he played a couple of matches last year as an alternate. Hopefully that experience helps him here. But he even said it in his pre-tournament press conference. He feels the pressure. Now, obviously, he said that he likes the pressure. All tennis players say that, and it's kind of BS. Like, pressure is not a good thing for almost anybody. It's just something that he's going to have to overcome. I'm also curious to see if the first serve stuff continues. On one hand, Jannik Sinner has made adjustments to his technique, and he's been playing indoors, so it makes sense that the first serve percentages have been so high. On the other hand, it's due for regression. Like, he's been absolutely tearing it up, like, first serve-wise, over 70% every single match. It's like, can that really continue? I'm not sure. It's just something to watch out for that I wanted to kind of throw out there. So those are kind of the negatives. The positives are he's been the second best player in the world post-US Open. He's the hot player. And usually players on hot streaks, I mean, we've seen it with Djokovic. We've seen it with Medvedev. We've even seen it with players who kind of catch lightning in a bottle, like Grigor Dimitrov in 2017. Like, hot players usually stay hot as long as they're not physically just wasted. And because Sinner didn't go deep in Paris, I'm going to kind of give him the benefit of the doubt physically. And I just think he's in a great zone right now. He's so liberated, so confident in the improvements that he's made in his game. And he's going to be ready to go here in conditions that are pretty good for him. Rune. Holger can be pesky in my opinion. I feel like the numbers that I talked about when we were looking at the head-to-heads, it's not a coincidence. They don't lie. He excels in these spots. He's an underdog against top players. Nobody's expecting him to win. He has struggled this year off clay, but he snuck into the field, and I just think he's looks healthy. He's been playing better, serving better, making more returns in play, finding some margin and some consistency from the back of the court. Last couple weeks, the only reason he's been losing is because his legs have been just going out on him. So, that is kind of a concern. This isn't the most grueling format physically. It's also not the easiest format physically. So I see Rune as a guy who could be really dangerous in the group stage. He'd probably break down if he's able to get out of the group stage and get to the semis or get to the finals. But I think Holger's dangerous. It's just I can't give him the nod over Sinner. Sinner is so much more reliable and trustworthy under pressure right now with the way he's playing. That the decision-making for Sinner is going to be sound, where Rune, from time to time, he's just going to shoot himself in the foot. So I have a lot more trust in Sinner, even though I have them both 2-1. I give Sinner the nod on the tiebreaker. Tsitsipas, I have at 0-3. I kind of feel bad about this because I missed the mark on Tsitsipas in Paris. I should have, and I shouldn't have. I did acknowledge that he was playing much better tennis, that things were looking good, that his game had stabilized, but I saw big servers in his section, and I kind of just threw him on upset alert because of that. Reality is Paris is slow enough where Tsitsipas in form, slow and low bouncing enough where Tsitsipas in form can protect his backhand. Steph wishes that these courts were like Paris. They're not. They're just so much quicker, which means the backhand return is a bigger challenge. It means he is not going to be able to hit as many runaround forehands, and he's going to have to hit more backhands in general. And it means it's going to be harder for him to defend on his backhand as well, even in rally. So these conditions go against Tsitsipas compared to Paris. But the real concern is the elbow. Now, these reports, they're a little bit, I haven't really been able to pinpoint them, except I think maybe it's Eurosport. I couldn't quite figure out where these reports coming from, but apparently he's ended his practice early 2 days in a row, and it's the right elbow. That's just terrible news. I hate to hear that, especially because this right elbow, it's been a problem area for Tsitsipas repeatedly. Obviously, surgically repaired. He missed the 2021, or was it last year? No, it was 2021. He missed the 2021 ATP Finals because of an elbow issue. And then he had surgery in the offseason before this year, because of the elbow issue. So to hear that he's having right elbow problems again, that's kind of the nail in the coffin for me when it comes to a group in the green group where I really like the other three players a lot. So that's where I have Tsitsipas, unfortunately for him, ending up 0-3. He plays first up tomorrow morning, and I'm sure a lot of people will be watching / listening to this when Tsitsipas has already played his match, and if he wins it, I will be hearing it in the comment section. I am well aware of that. All right, here's what I have for red group. I have Medvedev at 3-0. I have Alcaraz at 1-2 in second. I have Rublev at 1-2 in third. And I have Zverev at 1-2 in fourth. Yeah, I know this slide got all messed up, but whatever. It is what it is. I will start with Medvedev. Last year was not only a down year. So last year he went 0-3 at this event. Let me just say right off the bat, yeah, like this year Medvedev is very different from last year Medvedev, but also that was a little fluky. You know, he was just losing all of these razor close matches. And you got the feeling, even in the moment, that the 0-3 thing wasn't a real good representation of how Medvedev was playing at this event. And I love these conditions for him. I think they're great. The speed of the courts, it emphasizes his serve damage. It allows him easier offense from the baseline. The backhand becomes more of a weapon. He gets to hit a lot of them, like everybody else has to hit a lot of them. But for Medvedev, that's no problem, which is a good thing for Daniil. Serve and volley is the problem on fast courts for Daniil. Lucky for him, he's got two guys in his group who won't really do it. Zverev will get to net, but it's a question of will he execute up there? And sometimes, a lot of the time, the answer is no, and Medvedev is able to profit off of that. In the case of Rublev, he's probably not going to be up there much, period, whatsoever. So Rublev is a great matchup for Medvedev. And then Alcaraz, the one guy who will serve and volley. The good news for Medvedev is he can dominate on returns and play against Alcaraz. Like, Alcaraz is the guy, yes, he's got a good tactic in the serve and volley against Medvedev, but in terms of the serving disparity on courts like this, it's a big thing for Alcaraz to try to overcome. That's my biggest mystery head-to-head, though, or the match that I'm probably looking forward to most is just Medvedev and Alcaraz rematching after the U.S. Open. And I'd kind of said all year long that this would be the best conditions for Medvedev to beat Alcaraz on, and that's part of the reason why I ended up at 3-0. I did have to think, hard about it, because obviously Alcaraz does a lot of things that are good against Medvedev. I said I wasn't going to talk about the matchups, and here I am. All right. So Medvedev winning this group, Alcaraz coming in second. It's no secret with Alcaraz. These are the worst conditions possible for him. He doesn't really have a good win since the U.S. Open. I just think mentally he's going to be able to relax here. I don't think he'll be overwhelmed. I think he'll have a great attitude, and I think there's opportunity in every single matchup in this group. I kind of go back to the pressure stuff and the nerve management stuff, where if he's not in a major final against Djokovic, or if he's not playing Sinner, I think he's got the best nerve management out of all three of these guys. He's got the best tiebreak record this year by far, and I just think that will bring him through. Like, this is just a spot for Alcaraz where people don't really believe in him. The pressure's completely off. I don't like that his serve is a weakness, but I just think he finds a way to sneak through and advance out of this group. Even though I have his record at 1-2, he's going to play Rublev for the first time. I actually think he's on upset alert there. I think he'll go 2-1 if he beats Rublev, and 1-2 if he loses to Rublev. I think he'll beat Zverev. Rublev, I like the indoors factor, but I don't like the court speed for Rublev. I think he struggles with returns in play against big servers in fast conditions. He struggles to protect his second serve at times in these kinds of conditions. Granted, Zverev and Medvedev aren't going to be very good at taking advantage of that. And he has to play way more backhands. We know what Rublev wants to do. He wants to find forehands. So there's a lot of negatives for me in conditions this quick for Rublev. I think he's playing good tennis. I like him indoors, but I don't give him the nod over Alcaraz because of those things. I think similar to Alcaraz, these conditions don't help him. For Zverev, for him, it's kind of a different issue for him that I have, which is that the tennis that he's been playing, and I know I picked him to do really great in Paris. I picked him to win Paris because I thought it was an opportunity for him to take advantage of what I perceived as a tournament where the top guys were not going to play well. In a lot of ways, that was actually a really good read by me, other than Djokovic, right? But if Djokovic had fallen in one of those tight three-setters, it would have been a great read, because it would have been a great opportunity for somebody else to win. And that's kind of why I landed on Zverev there. But when I kind of zoom out, look at the big picture with Sasha. The tennis, to me, there has seemingly been something missing here where he's been too passive. He was too passive in those 2 matches in Paris where he went 3 sets with Humbert and somebody else. I'm just not seeing a lot of good forehand aggression from Sasha. Now, he's coming forward a lot, but I don't think that's a supplement. Like, I don't think that replaces the baseline aggression, because he's just, when he's not setting up the net approaches well and properly, it's not really a bonus for him. It's not helping him, especially because he's not an above average volleyer. He's just an average volleyer. So you have to be offensive on this court. I like the serve. Obviously, I like the serve. But I'm not convinced by the rest of it. And that's why I don't have Zverev advancing through the group. I didn't mention for Medvedev. The concern for Medvedev in these tight matches is the second serve. So I have a feeling if Medvedev doesn't go 3-0 and I'm wrong in my prediction, I have a feeling we might be talking about some big major double faults. All right, let's go to the final weekend. I have Djokovic over Alcaraz in 2 sets, Medvedev over Sinner in 3 sets, and Djokovic over Medvedev in 2 sets. I'm not going to go too in-depth here. I just feel like, Djokovic feels like a layup here for me. It's not very hard for me to get to picking Djokovic here. Again, I think he'll be levels above where he was at in Paris, and I think he's by far the best in these conditions. The faster, the better for Novak. I felt that way for a while. Indoors is also great for Novak. It's been a while since he's won an ATP Finals. I guess that's the one thing that's working against him. But I do think that this can be the one where he snaps the drought. Looking forward to it, everybody. Should be some good stuff. Again, I'll have a lot of coverage. I'll have a lot of content. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.